At some point in your art journey, you will be looking for critique in some form or another, but it is not easy at all to have someone ruthlessly point out your mistakes. Hey guys! If you haven't figured out yet, in this episode, we're going to be talking about the fear of art critique and how to deal with it. But before we get into that, my name is Sijna, your host of this podcast, and I'm here to guide you and give you my wisdom from things I've experienced and seen others around me experience. Now, firstly, let's get to all the terms you need in order for this podcast to make sense. We need to clarify the difference between good and bad critique. So firstly, good critique is based on someone pointing out important fundamentals that you are lacking by looking at a multitude of your pieces to get an idea of what kind of feedback you need. Bad critique, on the other hand, is based on vague response with no clear direction of how to improve, and generally comes from non-artists and maybe inexperienced artists who are just beginning like yourself, or an industry specialist who isn't very good at teaching, although they would probably be able to be more specific than an inexperienced artist or a beginner. Also, unsolicited critique is really important. Nobody should critique your art without your permission. I know that there are people who go on social media giving unsolicited critique when people are already happy with the pieces they've posted. Never critique someone's art without them asking for it. But now that we've got all the technical terms out of the way, let's get to the main point of this podcast. You need critique to grow. You need valuable critique that gives you a clear direction on how to improve. But it's not always easy asking or accepting that critique, not to mention getting it from the right sources. And we're going to get into all of this today. If you're struggling with accepting critique that you've been given and you've asked for, then think of it this way. Healthy critique, which as we defined earlier is good critique, is coming from a place where a person can see your potential and can see that you can grow. So unless you don't want to grow, and you need to start accepting critique, because I do know you want to grow. Receiving advice and a clear direction can change the look of your art and help you save tons of time. You know, I really struggled with this topic myself, and it's why I made this an episode. I'm taking Angel Gano's Portrait Accelerator course, and wow, it's really helped me grow so much because I needed that critique. But there was this young lady I'd always ask a critique from, because she was brutally honest and she helped a lot of people grow from lesson to lesson. That specific week, I was going through some stuff. And when I asked her for critique, almost everything was mostly correct, except some of my old stuff that I thought I had fixed. Example, perspective. Receiving that was super difficult, especially since I wasn't in the mindset for receiving critique. I mentally beat myself up, thinking to myself that, hey, I thought we fixed that. You're a bad artist. But in the end, I actually was experiencing burnout. And after I took a week off, I worked hard on all my stuff, taking the critique as best as possible. But it was only when I actually let a coach see my work was when I understood where I was going wrong with accepting critique. Everybody was giving me the specific critique, and I just couldn't accept it. But then hearing it from a coach, someone who was literally paid and knows what would be good for me, I realized I was accepting critique all wrong. You also need to be in the mindset to accept critique. You need to be open to critique. So let's talk about my little example. How was I doing it wrong? And as I said, it was all about the mindset. When someone critiqued me, I didn't take their entire critique as serious as I should have. And the next piece, I made the same mistakes as the one before. I felt like I was going to push myself to a breaking point, but in actuality, pushing myself past what I knew would have helped me and my art grow. Now, I hope you can take this words of encouragement and go ahead and ask the right people for critique. But I'm sure you're wondering, how do you ask for critique now that you want it? Well, if you want specific feedback, focus on the following. Avoid saying, what do you think about this? Or thoughts. This type of thinking shows you don't care about growth, but rather compliments, and you're also avoiding the main issues. I know you've been terrified to have all your real mistakes pointed out, but you have to throw yourself into that deep end. And here are some little pointers you need before asking for critique. Try giving yourself a self-critique by comparing your work to other artists' work. And no, I'm not saying compare yourself to the artist. Compare your art, not yourself. Avoid making basic mistakes, such as things that people already point out to avoid making, such as using certain colors that'll make your piece muddy, non-confident lines, etc. Don't ask for critique on only one piece of art, because the person you're asking for critique can't give you specifics if they can't see a consistent issue. So this is how you should ask for critique. Number 1, mention what you struggle with and ask for help in the direction that would be more correct. Number 2, mention specifics that you feel you need to improve on. Number 3, ask what can I do to improve? And when I say what can I do to improve, I'm talking about in general, not just on the things you pointed out, because it could be things that you never realized. Number 4, ask if your drawing looks accurate to the reference. As a beginner, you should be learning realism before you can learn to push things outside of the box for stylization. And don't say it's outside of your comfort zone. You don't even have a comfort zone if you're just starting out. So you need to do realism. If it's a sketch, ask for the quality of your lines. And if it's a painting, ask for the quality of your brushstrokes with the specific method you use. For example, in sketching, you would be there like, is my hatching correct? Is my sketching correct? Stippling. And with painting, there's different paints like oil, watercolor, gouache, and different paint methods for each and every single type of medium. So you need to be specific, and also be sure that you're asking, in terms of traditional art, be sure that you're asking someone who actually does that medium, not someone who doesn't. Digital, you try to also ask somebody who uses your specific art program versus someone who doesn't. Number 6, have an achievable milestone you want to get to, and ask how far and how much improvement is needed to get to that. Perhaps maybe in a year you want to be able to have faces that actually look like faces. And, look at a level at which you would like to reach and see how you are getting closer and closer to that by asking the person you're asking for critique that question. If you've seen a similar reference of art with your same reference and they did do realism, and you like how the artist did maybe a specific thing, for example, like a strand of hair, try to find out how they did that. So these are the 7 things you need to focus on when asking for valuable and good critique. Number 1, your struggles. Number 2, be specific. Number 3, where to improve. Number 4, realism, accuracy to the reference. Number 5, quality of lines or brush strokes based off of method used and medium used, and whether it is digital or traditional. Number 6, improvement needed to get to desired milestone. And number 7, studying other artists. The thing I learned the hard way is that the moment you tell yourself you're going to take the given critique seriously is when I actually improved more and started to understand stuff more. Now, how do you respond to constructive criticism, aka good critique, which is what this whole episode was about, because we all know that is really a struggle. So firstly, just say thank you. Really that simple. They took their time out to help you, and they could have been doing other things. And don't get defensive and make excuses why you were right. If you don't understand, ask questions, ask for a paint over, don't argue. We've spoken a lot on asking and accepting critique. What if someone asks you for a critique? Whoa, you didn't think I was gonna bring that up now. In that case, you need to decide if you have the knowledge and skill level to be giving criticism. It will be more detrimental to the next artist if you can't give them valuable feedback to help them. In many cases, it is very difficult to find good critique partners. So some suggestions in way to find good critique partners is to join a paid course where you will be given feedback. For example, Ross Straws ran a 1-year boot camp that has already paused, and is a really good example for where you can get valuable feedback. It has helped a lot of artists grow, and I've seen it myself. Another person is Mark Burnett's paid art school where you can get feedback. A course like the one I'm taking by Angel Ganev, and in terms of free resources, you could go to Proco 2.0, Reddit, and Discord servers where you can make art friends to grow and learn. And besides, the more art friends you grow and learn with, the more likely y'all will follow each other, make collabs in the future, and that is really more exciting. Anyways, that's it for this podcast. I hope you get over your fear and realize constructive criticism, aka good critique, is the only way to grow. I hope you will use the 7 questions you should be asking when you're looking for critique. And anyway, my question is, how do you approach your fear of critique? Something I never brought up that you would like to let everybody know. I'll see you in the next podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and follow me on Instagram. And remember, fear will only keep you stagnant and lack of growth.